So what kind of a programming language is Python? Is it a functional programming language? Is it a object-oriented programming language?
Object. Huh?
I'm sorry?
It's not object oriented.
No, it is an object-oriented programming. You're right. So when we talk about object-oriented programming and we talk about classes, what is a class in object-oriented programming?
Kind of like a template or a prototype. It's something you make other things out of, like you're kind of defining what you want this to look like, and then you can make other things from it.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good definition. Does anybody else have anything else they'd like to add, or how they think of classes in Python?
I can tell you what I think classes are, but not in Python. But if I've ever used a class, it's basically like he said earlier, like a template
Yep.
that you're just gonna keep building off of.
Yeah. So who has not heard of a class? I really don't expect anybody to have heard of it before, but who has not heard of one, or class or an object before? It's totally okay if you haven't, because we're not expecting to.
I have it.
Okay, yeah, good. So up until this point, using JavaScript, you've just been essentially, and even like the application and CoderByte, you've just been doing functional programming, where you're just writing functions that take in some input, and then it does something with whatever the function does, whatever the instructions of that function does, and it just spits out some result. It doesn't know anything beyond that. So that function is just, once it runs, it puts out the output, and then it doesn't know anything. Nothing persists after that function runs. So it doesn't know anything about it. It just knows that, you put input, have some input, it does something with that input, and it spits out a result, or it returns something. Where Python is an object-oriented programming language, pretty much everything in Python is called an object, or also referred to as a class, but it's specifically an object. So Latasha, was it David who said what a class is? Yep. Yeah. So you're exactly right. So a class is like an outline or a blueprint for creating a new object. So, but what is an object? So in Python, everything's an object. So let's look at this. So what we did before, let's say like name equals Tom, just like we did. And we did like age equals 35. If I printed the type of name, so I wanted to know like the data type of this name. Does anybody know what it might be? So what data type is this? String. So, sorry, did somebody else say something?
Nope, string.
Yep. So it's a string, but we're in, let's actually, yeah, so it's a string, but what type of class is it? It's a string class, or it's a string object. Same thing with age. It's an integer, but it's an integer class. Let's actually see if we have like an object, if we do, or like a dictionary. So if I did like info that had, name, Julie, age, 35. If I wanted to do the type of info, let's see what that is. It's a class dictionary. It's a dictionary class. Let's see if we had, what was it, fruits, apples. And if I want to do the type of fruits, I wonder what this is. Let's see. It's a list class. So everything in this class can be, you can interchange object. So everything in Python is an object. But again, what is an object? It is a outline or blueprint of, or I'm sorry, what is a class? It is the blueprint of some object. So we have the string object, integer object, dictionary object, list object. So everything in Python is an object. But how do you create an object? We need to define a class, which is a blueprint for creating that new object. So if you think of an object, if you actually just think of the term object, all right, what is an object? I've got like a pair of headphones, that's an object. I've got like a water bottle, that's an object. I have a phone, that's an object, like it's a phone object. So if you think of an object as a noun, a person, place, or thing that you can like interact with. And each object has attributes and behaviors that are associated with it. So if I wanted to create a class for a person, so if we're talking about person, place, or thing, so if I wanted to create, or like a human class or a dog class, so I wanted to create a blueprint to creating a dog. I'm just gonna comment this stuff out. Or let's not do dog, because I think we'll do dog tomorrow, but I might as well do dog. All right. So if I wanted to create a blueprint to creating a new dog, I can write a class. Again, we're creating a blueprint. We're using the keyword class. And when you're defining a new class, you always want to use uppercase. So I'm going to create a class dog. And I'm just going to pass. So I'm not going to actually do anything with that. So if I wanted to create a class dog and I wanted to create a bunch of dogs, I can create a bunch of instances of a dog. So if you think like, if, a mother gave birth to, 6 golden retrievers, she created 6 instances of a dog class, if you want to think of it like that. So she created 6 new instances of a dog. So I can say like Tom. I'm going to create a dog instance. So like dog 1, dog 2, dog 3. And if I wanted to create a new instance of this dog, so again, this is just a blueprint, this little part right here. This dog class is a blueprint to creating new instances of a dog object. So this is just a blueprint right here. And now if I wanted to create an actual instance of that dog, I can say dog and invoke it, just like you do like a method. Like so. So I created a variable and I'm creating a new dog instance of that. I'm creating a new dog instance and assigning it to this dog 1, dog 2, dog 3. So if I wanted to print type of dog 1, just like I was doing up here, type of name, that's a string. And now I'm doing type of dog 1, which is a variable, but now it's of a dog class. I can clear that and run that. It's a class dog. So it's a dog class. What questions do you have about classes right now?
Right. So JavaScript classes would have the keyword new. Is that not a thing in Python?
Correct. So yeah, you do not need to instantiate a new dog class by using the new keyword. And that's new in JavaScript. That's not, so JavaScript wasn't written to be an object-oriented programming language. And it technically still isn't, but you still have the ability to create objects or classes in JavaScript. That's a relatively new feature in JavaScript.
What does that pass mean?
This means that I'm not doing anything with this code. So if I did that, it'll throw an error because it doesn't know when it reads this file, it comes into this class and it's like, there's nothing in here. So this pass just is a placeholder. So it's like, don't do anything, just pass. Once it gets here, just jump down to the next line of code,
Okay.
which is here. So if I did that to dog1, dog2, clear that. So there we go.
So the naming convention for a class is uppercase, correct?
Yes, it's actually uppercase. It's uppercase camel case actually. So if it's required like additional words, it'd be like dog, something like, or like golden. So this is, so yeah, it's uppercase.
Like title case?
Yeah, uppercase camel case, I guess that would be called.
I think this is called Pascal case.
Thank you. Pascal case.
Is there a reason that when you call the type of, these have main in front of them and not just dog?
There is a reason, and I don't know off the top of my head. I think it's because I'm running it from this file, and this is like the main file, the way Python runs it. This is like the main file. But yeah, you don't really have to know. You don't really need to know why that is.
Okay.
Now is main a prototype? Is that why there's the underscores there?
Let's see. I want to know if it's called I know in JavaScript, like they've got like the dot prototype type of things. If I did, so yeah, I actually don't know off the top of my head why that the dunder main. But if I do dir dog1, let's see. I wonder if I have to print that. All right. So if I type dir, which I think stands for directory, these are all the built-in methods associated with the dog class. You don't need to know about these right now. You really don't. The only one you'll probably need to know is this one, this dunder init, and where it's like the double under, the double underscore, those are called dunder methods. Yeah. But you really don't need to know about that now. I just want to make sure that you kind of understand what a class is and like what an object is. So a class is the blueprint to creating a new object. What questions do you have about objects or classes? Nobody has any questions? Somebody has a question. Come on. Somebody ask it.
Can we send it something?
What?
And can we put something in the dog? Yeah. And then,
So-
yeah, how does that work?
Yeah. So as I said, like originally, so each class or object has specific attributes and behaviors. So if you think about a dog, what are some attributes of a dog?
Breed.
So we have the breed, color. What are some things that don't generally change on a dog?
4 legs. For the
Number
most
of-
part.
Yeah, number of legs. So when I initialize or create a new instance of a dog, I want it to automatically have 4 legs. So def dunder init. This is called the initialize method or the constructor method. It's called dunder init. And anytime I create a new instance of this dog, it will automatically run this, what is called a dunder method, this dunder init method. And I always have to pass in self as the very first argument in here. You don't have to do anything with the self, but this self keyword means essentially refers to the instance of this dog. So
Kind of similar to the this keyword in JavaScript.
it's exactly the same thing. So I can say like number of legs equals 4. So when I create a new instance of this dog, it comes into here. It runs this method and it says, hey, the number of legs equals 4. And this self keyword refers to the instance of this dog. So if I don't use the self keyword, if I just use number of legs, this is a local variable and I can't access this variable outside of this dunder init method. But if I use self dot number of legs, I have access to this number of legs variable anywhere within my class, anywhere within my dog class. What questions do you have?
So then if we wanted to display the number of legs in the dog1 instance, how do we do that?
There's a couple of ways we can do that. So I'm just going to print, I can do dog1. So I'm accessing. So if I just print dog1, let's actually see what that looks like. So notice how it's the type of dog1 is a class. But when I print the dog1 variable, it's an object of the dog class. And this little bunch of numbers and characters, this is just the location in memory that this dog object is located at. You don't really have to know anything about this part right here, but just know that this dog1 is a dog object and the type of dog1 is a class dog.
Did you print dog1 dot num of legs?
Yep, exactly. So if I wanted to access the number of legs for this dog1 instance, I can clear it. I can say it has 4 legs. But what else? What's another attribute of a dog that may change?
I have a
Breed.
quick question
Oh, yep.
about
Sure,
sorry
sure.
about the legs.
No,
Can you change the number of legs for a specific dog if you set it in the class?
Yes, you can. And that's kind of where I'm about to lead to. But like typically dogs are generally born with 4 legs. But if I wanted to change something, or if there's an attribute about a dog that may change, that's where we can actually change it. So what's an attribute that we can change on a dog?
So we're looking at things that every instance of the dog class will have, but each one will be different, like name. Like every dog's going to have a name, but they're all going to be different names.
Yep.
It'll have a color, but they'll all be different colors, things like that.
Exactly. So right here, we're hard coding the number of legs because we're like, hey, every single dog should be born with 4 legs, and let's just leave it at that. But if we want to change something like the name or the color of the dog, so I'm going to say name. So just remember every single in the dunder init method, that's what this is called, dunder for double under init method. It always takes in self as the very first keyword, and anything that we want to change or pass in manually into this dog instance comes after the self keyword, such as name. So self.name equals name. So if I wanted to change, or if I wanted to add the name to this dog, such as like, if I want to name this dog Sadie or something, anything that comes after the self keyword, such as name, I can pass into the instance of a dog when I'm initializing it, such as like Sadie. So Sadie is referring to the name in this dunder init method. And now I'm assigning name to this self.name variable. And so yeah, let's actually take a look at that. So I'm printing the number of legs and I'm printing the name right here. Uh-oh, what does it say? Oh, right here, I'm gonna comment those out because it requires me to pass in. So right there, Sadie, the dog, has 4 legs and the name is Sadie. These self dot variable names, these are called instance variables. Self. Because these vary based on the instance of the dog. Such as like the self refers to self.name and self.number of legs refers to this individual dog instance. So it's this variable belongs to the instance of the dog object. So dog 1 is an instance of dog, of the dog class. So if I did like, what's another dog's name? Does anyone else have any dogs in the class? What's your dog's
Rosie.
name? Rosie,
Right.
is it Rosie like that?
Yep.
All right, Rosie. So dog 2, let's just print dog 1. Print dog 2. Name. Oh. What am I doing here? So dog 2, number of legs. So here's dog 1, is a dog object, it has 4 legs. The dog's name is Sadie. Here's dog 2. It's at a different location in memory that also has 4 legs, and her name is Rosie. So these are variables that are different across instances.
I have a quick question. When
Yep.
you're assigning the variables at the top by the self, like where you have name it, when you're putting them in order, they have to be in order when you're initializing the dog variable.
Like in here, when I'm actually passing it in,
Yes, they have to be
Yeah.
in order that you have them in the order in the top, correct?
correct. So if I did like color and age, I would have to pass in name, then color, then, or name, then age, then color in here.
Yeah.
So like age would be like 2, color would be like golden or whatever. Whoop. So yeah, you do have to keep those the same.
Okay.
Do you have to pass in something for every variable? Or so like, let's say the dog doesn't have a name, but you have an age and color. Can you go without one of the variables, or do you have to have something for every variable?
You technically, it depends on how you architect it. I would say you don't have to, but the way this is architected right now, I do. And we'll get into what's called keyword arguments, QARGs, or just ARGs, where it doesn't matter you can like pass in, it'll look like something like, oh man, I can't think off the top of my head remember what it looks like. But yeah, there is a way where we can have an option to pass in.
Would that take a default parameter, like you could set it equal to none?
Yeah, you could do this. That's one way around it. But again, you'd have to make sure the order is the same. So you can't just not pass in name and just assume age is going to be next. So and we'll get to that in the future about passing in optional arguments, etc. So again, the self keyword, those are called instance variables because they belong to each instance of the dog class. What questions do you have about instance variables?
Can you add instance variables for a specific instance?
Yes. So anytime you initialize a new instance of a dog, it comes in here, creates these instance variables. Now, as I mentioned, what's unique about instance variables is I have access to this variable, this number of legs and name, outside of the scope of this init function. Because typically, when it comes to scope, you only have access to variables within the scope of the function they're defined in. But instance variables, I have access to these outside of this dunder init. So for example, if I said def print legs self, again, this is still within the class. So print legs, I'm creating a instance method now. And I can print or return print self dot number of legs. So I have access to number of legs without having to pass in anything into this function. Because I already have, because this is an instance variable, I have it throughout the entire instance of this class. So I have it, it's still within the scope of this print legs. So if I uncomment that out, and right here, I'm just doing dog1, number of legs equals 4. But if I want to invoke this print legs function, I can do print legs and invoke it like so. Clear. Uh-oh, what happened? Oh,
It's returning the print statement
oh,
as
thank you.
the return.
Thank you. So print 4. I can say like f string self dot name has self legs. So clear. So Sadie has 4 legs. So
Quick
again,
question.
yep.
You highlighted self number of legs and then you did a hotkey to put squiggly brackets around it.
So if I did like self dot name like that.
Yep.
Yep. So I just highlighted the entire whatever I want to surround anything with. So if I wanted to curly braces or square brackets, like so, I just highlight it and just press the open square or open squiggly bracket and automatically closes it off for me.
Nice. Thanks.
Yep. So just reiterate, these instance variables are just variables that have the self dot in front of it are called instance variables. And I have access to these instance variables anywhere within the dog class without having to manually pass it in. So like print legs, I'm not passing in the number of legs or the name in it as a function, but I have access to self.name, self.number of legs. Now, if I did just number of legs and name, it gives me an error. It's like, hey, it doesn't know what name is referring to. I haven't defined the name function yet because it's not an instance variable. This is looking for a local variable defined within the scope of the print legs function, but it doesn't exist. But let's say I wanted to update new legs number or something. I don't know. Say I want to update the number of legs. Actually, let's check this out. So update. Oh, I messed this up. Again, I'm doing camel case here. It should be snake case. So if I want to do like update legs. Again, I'm using the self keyword here because this is going to be an instance method. This method is only used on an instance of a dog. And we'll get into class methods and later on, but new leg count. So let's update legs. Always start with the self keyword, and I'm passing in the new leg count. And I can update the self.number of legs by doing self.number of legs equals new leg count. And now let's see what that looks like. So I'm printing the number of legs, or print legs initially, which should be 4. I'm going to update the number of legs. Say she, let's make it 3. And now let's print the number of legs again. So Sadie has 4 legs, printed legs here, comes here, prints the number of legs. I guess I can even get rid of this part. So Sadie has 4 legs right here. Up here, I'm updating the number of legs. So new leg count, self.number of legs, assigns the new leg count. And then I'm coming up here and printing the number of legs again. And now the new leg count, or the new number of legs, is 3. What questions do you have about instance variables and classes or objects?
Where did the none come from?
That's because update legs doesn't return anything. I could return self dot number of legs if I wanted to. And if that's the case, then it returns 3. But I can, it's only because I didn't have this function return anything, or this method return anything. All right. What questions do you have?
I don't know if you want to move on or not, but I had a general question. We learned scope the other day. How is scope different in Python versus JavaScript? I know JavaScript has, function, global, and block scope, and we were talking about that the other day. What's the difference in Python?
I don't think there isn't any difference. Like there's still global scope, function scope, and local scope. Did you guys talk about hoisting and stuff in JavaScript?
We didn't get to hoisting.
Yeah.
I was looking at it individually. I think I put something on the Slack about it, but
yeah.
So hoisting doesn't exist in Python?
Correct. Yeah, it doesn't exist. But yeah, but like as far as scope goes, everything should be pretty much identical to that of JavaScript, except for hoisting. But you don't really need to know about that right this instance. All right. Yeah. What questions do you have? We're gonna hammer this in every single night going forward, pretty much for a while. So if you don't understand it now, that's okay, because we're gonna cover it again tomorrow. All right. Any last questions?
I have a quick question about a shortcut you used.
Yep, Chris.
Yeah. So how did you you highlight, say, like number of legs, and it highlights every instance of that, but how do you change them all at the same time?
Yeah, good question. So I just double clicked on it, or I just to highlight it, I do Option Shift over and it highlights that. And VS Code highlights it automatically, kind of like highlights it for me. But if I really want to highlight everything or like select everything, I'm doing Command D, which will select every instance or of the value I have highlighted. So I have these 4 highlighted, and now I can just change this like leg count. It changes every single instance of that.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, thank you.
Yep. So again, Command D highlights every instance of that and So everything's highlighted. This now I can do like something else, or I can change it all at once.
Thank you.
Question?